Alaska, Nova Scotia, Galapagos. 3 points along the route which takes us down the west coast of North America to the Sea of Cortez, out to the Galapagos, through the Panama Canal, past Cuba and up the east coast to Nova Scotia, a distance of some 12,500 nautical miles. The boat, a Fleming 65, hull number 1, named Venture. Our most northerly point was Juneau, a land of magnificent snow-capped peaks. These mountains lie between Juneau and Skagway. Down at sea level, this is the dramatic scenery of Ford's Terror. Just around the corner, Venture is seen pushing the ice floes aside in Tracy Arm. Everywhere are still, pristine fjords. On down the west coast past Vancouver, Washington, Oregon and California. Between the long skinny peninsula of Baja California and the Mexican mainland lies the Sea of Cortez. There are mountains here too, but stark and devoid of trees. This is the desert, harsh and arid, but the adjacent seas bursting with life. Venture now lay at anchor in quiet bays, framed by saguaro cactus. The bones of the landscape reveal strange and wonderful rock formations. We refueled and provisioned in the Mexican town of La Paz before heading across the water to the resort town of Puerto Vallarta on the Mexican mainland. Down the coast to Tenacatita, we took the tender through a green tunnel of mangroves to a hidden village on the Pacific shore. Moving on south, the sea was alive with turtles. Now in the lush tropical rainforest of Costa Rica, we arrived at the Marina of Los Suenos. Here we took on the all-important fuel for the 650-mile journey to the Galapagos. Not many powerboats make this trip because they lack the range and ability to handle the offshore passage. It was to be almost 1,000 miles before we would refuel again. We headed for the infinitesimally small dot that was Cocos Island, 300 miles away in the immensity of the Pacific. We travelled slowly to conserve fuel, so it was the afternoon of the second day that Cocos appeared first on radar and then arose over the horizon through the rain and thunderstorms. Mist draped the forested slopes, and we felt as if we had arrived in a lost world. We approached Chatham Bay and called the ranger station on the radio. Anchoring is not permitted, and we were directed to a mooring. When the dawn came up like thunder, we found we had a new neighbour. We ran our tender around the point and over a bar into the estuary of the Janeo River in Wafer Bay for a trek through the rainforest to a waterfall. It started with the crossing of a quaint suspension bridge made up of fishing floats. Only 18 square miles in area, Cocos lies in the tropical convergence zone, and gets 275 inches of rain a year, which supports a tropical rainforest. The track was rough but adequate, and climbed steadily through the lush vegetation.
For the river, please, the river.
At last we reached the falls and were able to cool off under its thundering torrent. The following morning the rain was back, and once more the remote island took on its lost world appearance. We headed another 350 miles out into the Pacific to the Galapagos Islands. On the way we crossed the equator, but Neptune exacted no special tribute. After 2 days at sea, we arrived in Academy Bay of Puerto Ayora on Santa Cruz Island. Our first destination were the Plaza Islands, a few miles north of Ayora. Immediately after going ashore, we had our first meeting with one of the land iguanas, for which the Galapagos are famous. These reptiles are about 3 feet long. The tops of these cliffs are a clubhouse for bachelor sea lions. It is hard to believe that these large animals, apparently so ungainly on land, climb these cliffs and seek out their favorite resting sites. As with any club, the senior members have priority and unceremoniously kick out the juniors. Mothers suckle their young with rich milk and nurture them for the first 3 years of life. We were underway before dawn in order to reach our next destination. We headed for Kiko Rock, also known as Leon Dormido, the sleeping lion. This remnant of an ancient volcano rises 500 feet sheer from the water. The landscape had a stark beauty. The powdery white sand dazzled the eyes. Crimson ghost crabs scuttled across its surface on tippy toes, like runaway rubies. Venture swung at her anchor on a turquoise sea, framed with lava as black as jet. We moved on to Gardiner Bay on Espanola, which is one of the oldest islands in the chain. Sea lions lolled along the beach and paid us little attention. On Floriana, also known as Santa Maria, we met the gorgeous pink flamingos whose distant ancestors are believed to have originated from the Caribbean, although by what means they arrived here is still a mystery. At Puerto Egas on Santiago Island, Many marine iguanas were warming their body temperature in the morning sun before entering the cold water to forage for the seaweed, which was their main diet. Adding a splash of color to the black rocks and iguanas were numerous Sally Lightfoot crabs, so named for their ability to skip across the rocks, ahead of, or even in, the swirling waters. This crab is lubricating its joints in preparation for exchanging its shell for a larger size. We anchored in Cerro Brillo and went ashore to walk across the jet-black lava dating from an eruption in 1897. The lava is of a type known as pahoehoe, which is a Hawaiian term to describe the form shown here. Frigate birds with their 7-foot wingspan cruised effortlessly above us as we headed towards Santa Cruz. Known also as man-o'-war birds, they are the pirates of the bird world. First there was one, and then joined by others. They brought to mind pterodactyls floating on a prehistoric wind. This male with deflated courting pouch became our latest hitchhiker. Seymour Island at the northern tip of Santa Cruz gave us the opportunity to observe the courting rituals of the blue-footed boobies. The males woo the females by sky pointing, accompanied by a whistle. Nearby, a male frigate bird has his courting pouch fully inflated. The female is much less flamboyant. Here, a great frigate, with his deflated pouch resembling a red cravat, sits on a nest. On the ground below, a magnificent land iguana is on the hunt for insects. These reptiles are 3 feet long and can go without water for as long as 1 year. We went to see the giant tortoises which give the Galapagos their name, and for this we had to take a car to the uplands of Santa Cruz Island. We now took on 1,550 gallons of fuel as we prepared to set out on the 900-mile transit to Panama. We had an escort of boobies as the last of the Galapagos Islands dropped astern. We were accompanied by one last hitchhiker as evening fell. The following day we picked up an escort of dolphins. Our weather advisor forecast thunderstorms along our route and recommended that we head east before turning north, but this would have added many additional miles, so we elected to take a straight shot to Panama. The weather looked very ominous, but turned out to be not as bad as it looked. After 4 days and nights at sea, we sighted mainland Panama rising over the horizon under stormy skies. We had burned just over 1 gallon per mile and arrived with almost half our fuel remaining. After the isolation of the 900-mile ocean crossing from Galapagos, Venture arrived in Panama Bay to find it crowded with vessels awaiting their turn to transit the Panama Canal. Storm clouds bloomed on the radar, and AIS was a great assistance in isolating the ships from the clutter.
Distance from Flamingo Lighthouse, 2.3 miles, bearing 112 degrees, over. Thank you, standing by, center 12. We standing by, channel 12.
We rafted up alongside a sports fishing boat. Venture provided the propulsion for both vessels. The messenger lines come aboard. This line is used to pull across the blue mooring lines rented from the Canal Authority. Small boats using this technique are referred to as hand-line transits. We approached the first Miraflores Lock on the Pacific side. We were sharing the lock with a freighter from Bangkok. The massive gates swung shut behind us. These gates are 6 foot 6 inches thick, 64 feet wide and 66 feet high. They are hollow and buoyant to reduce the weight on the hinges. The lines are adjusted by the line handlers as the vessels rise. 26.7 million gallons of water boils in through the 22-foot diameter culverts, filling the lock in just 8 minutes. There are no pumps involved, and the water rushes in from the higher level in Gatun Lake by gravity alone.
The locomotives are wheels and attached to the ship by means of steel cables, where they roll the vessel in the center to avoid a hit against the lock wall. The average size ships require 6, larger vessels might need up to 8.
now clear of the Pacific locks and free to proceed independently towards Gatun Lake. The railway, opened in 1855, predates the canal by 60 years and is used to transship containers across the isthmus. Sometimes this is done to lighten the ship to reduce its draft to the limit of 39 feet. The containers would then be reloaded at the other end of the canal. The earthworks you see are the early stages of a scheme underway to construct additional larger locks. The cost is estimated at $5.25 billion. Here we can see the Centennial Bridge completed in 2004, providing a second road link. The new bridge now carries the Pan American Highway. Surprisingly, the Panama Canal runs not east-west, but almost north-south. In fact, at Colon we were west of the starting point of Panama City. We left Colon at the northern end of the Panama Canal for the 600-mile crossing of the Western Caribbean to the Cayman Archipelago. It was the evening of the third day when we arrived on the island of Grand Cayman and were rewarded by a magnificent sunset. The following morning we went ashore at Georgetown to attend the formalities for entering one of the very few remaining British colonies, having been administered by Britain since 1655. We made our way round past the anchored cruise ships to North Sound and tied up at the more protected but rather bleak surroundings of the Cayman Islands Yacht Club, where we later took on fuel from a road tanker. The design of this gate to the nature reserve reflects that of the silver thatch palm, which is the national tree of the Cayman Islands and found nowhere else. Wild orchids display their delicate blossoms, and this iguana is native to the island. With the hurricane season fast approaching, we could not afford to dally, and we were soon on our way once more. Tropical weather took on a menacing appearance as we negotiated the tricky passage out through the reef. Even in the marked channel we had only 3 feet to spare under our keel, and the bottom was very visible through the clear water. We had to deviate around the western end of Cuba through the Yucatan Channel. We had arrived back in the USA in the Florida Keys at the quirky town of Key West. Just north of Cuba, we felt a slight vibration and suspected we might have picked up something on a propeller. Imagine our surprise and that of the diver when he found this enormous cargo bag wrapped around one of the propellers.
Relaxation is the key.
now headed north along the Florida Keys to Fort Lauderdale. This was another overnight passage, and we arrived in the bustling city just as dawn was breaking, and made our way through the network of channels to the marina at Bahia Mar. After 3 days, we retraced our way past exotic waterfront properties towards the 17th Street Bridge at the mouth of the harbour. The Atlantic Intracoastal Waterway runs from the Florida Keys to Norfolk, Virginia, and provides a safe inland route all the way up the eastern seaboard. However, progress in parts can be very slow due to the number of bridges which open on a timetable. Wherever possible, we lowered our radio antennas and crept under bridges without them having to open for us, but it is almost impossible to judge bridge clearance by eye alone. A series of inlets links the waterway to the open ocean, and we alternated between the waterway and the open sea. We picked up an escort of dolphins who accompanied us for some distance along the waterway. It was such a contrast to be floating so close to private homes that our shadow was cast across their yards and swimming pools, after being out in the rough and tumble of the open ocean. The barge canal led us to Cape Canaveral, where we passed through a lock into the Atlantic Ocean for an overnight passage to Morehead Inlet. We did not need the radar to warn us of a serious storm heading our way. It was only too visibly evident as the angry clouds boiled towards us, accompanied by thunder and lightning. The anemometer read 60 knots in the gusts, but fortunately the storm was short-lived. Back in the protection of inland waters, we attracted a following of a huge flock of laughing gulls, which somehow avoided hitting each other as they wheeled and dived to forage in our wake. We stopped for one night at Belhaven before continuing up the waterway, which alternated between narrow channels and wide open stretches. Almost every channel marker had been commandeered by ospreys for their untidy nests. Brush fires in the Carolinas filled the atmosphere with haze. We had now reached mile marker number 1 and arrived at the northern end of the Atlantic Intracoastal at the city of Norfolk, a busy industrial and navy port. We stopped here for a few hours before continuing up the Chesapeake in order to arrive in daylight at our destination close to Annapolis. We spent 1 week at Burr Yacht Sales, the Fleming dealership for the eastern United States, with their new and marvelously equipped marina. But we still had many miles ahead of us and were soon on our way once more up the Chesapeake and passing through the Chesapeake and Delaware Canal, opened in 1829 and large enough for ocean-going ships. Along the western shore of Delaware Bay, we came within a couple of miles of Fleming's Landing, a tiny spot up a muddy creek which served as Venture's hailing port. The 3-mile-long Cape May Canal led us through to Cape May Harbor, where we spent 1 night before heading back out once more into the Atlantic and along the coast of New Jersey to New York. From New York we would head up the Hudson and through the Erie and Oswego canals to the St. Lawrence Seaway and on to Nova Scotia, and then continuing our journey to Maine and back to New York to complete the Down East Circle.